Hello, everybody. This is One More Road for the Beer, the podcast about beer, travel, and food around the greatest beer cities in Europe. I'm Zachary Johnston, and with me, as always, is my beer Sherpa and beer guide, Mr. Joe Stang.
Hi.
Hey, Joe. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
So we're broadcasting from our Berlin studio, but today we're talking about Prague, Praha, in the Czechia or Czech Republic if you're old school. And before we dive in to all the wonderful, wonderful places to drink beer in Prague, we thought we'd talk a little bit about the beer first because there's some words that are, kind of hard to pronounce and, there's a little bit of a barrier there that we want to kind of break down before we go and drink the stuff. So, Joe, why don't you start us out with what Czech beer is and how beautiful this stuff is to drink.
Yeah, we're going to talk about one of the most beautiful cities in the world and also one of the really great beer drinking countries of the world. Not just great beer countries, but great beer drinking countries. Yeah, it's not just about tasting here, right? Yeah. It's about quantity and sitting in a place and being comfortable and really enjoying what you're after.
For sure. Yeah, you always read about the Czechs being the biggest beer drinkers in the world per capita or per volume. So yeah, this is the big times.
So if you can indulge me for a few minutes, I'm going to get geeky, but I'm going to try to be as ungeeky about it as possible in talking about what makes Czech beer special. Everybody knows Pilsner, or they think they know Pilsner. You've heard of Pilsner. The word doesn't really make sense in Czechia, unless you're talking about one beer in particular, Pilsner Urquell. Pilsner has come to, it's like this generic word for pale lager around the world, but actually in the Czech Republic, that just means a beer from Pilsen. In that case, you're really just talking about one beer.
Right, so it's almost appellation in Czech.
Right, so we get to use a little bit more exotic foreign words now, like Světlý ležák. Beautiful. I think it's beautiful because I know what it means. But we're talking about pale lager. That's all it means. If you like the dark stuff, it may be Černý or Tmavý ležák. These are words you don't have to memorize, but just making the point that if you go up and order a Pilsner, they may not really know what you mean.
Right, because like Svelte is like Svelt, ležák is lager. It's literally sort of a easy lager almost, or a Svelte, or I think a Svelte, is sort of like skinny or like attractive. So it's like attractive lager.
Is that where Svelte comes from?
I believe so, yeah. Okay. In Russian, they have it as well, and it's literally Svelte, like it's spelled the way English spells it.
Vocabulary-wise, that's one thing to know. Another thing, before I get into the technical brewing stuff, is the numbers, right? The degrees.
Yes, that always confused me.
They're not really big on ABV, on alcohol percentage. They can kind of guess that by their degree system. So just to give you the really short version, you may find a deshitka for, it's 10 degrees. That's going to be around 4% roughly. It's an all-day type of session beer. Or you may find a 12, the Divinačka. And the 12 is around 5% alcohol. That's sort of more standard strength, pale lager type beer. And for me, that's the gold standard. When I want to get to know a brewery in the Czech Republic, I want to try their pale 12, the Světlý 12. And that's usually what I prefer.
Right, and then you'll see 14, 16, 18. Does it sort of go up in twos? Or?
Yeah. No, they're odd numbers, and I'm not sure which ones are more common. It's been explained to me by a friend of ours who we need to mention that certain numbers are often associated with certain colors. So you may, for some reason, a Polo Tmavý is always 13 or something, but a Tmavý may be a 14. Okay. Polo Tmavý being an amber, Tmavý a dark. Why it's like this, I don't know. And it's not a hard and fast rule. I think there are always exceptions.
Right, but we know who would know.
Yes, our friend Evan Rail, who we have to give a big shout out to up front because I wouldn't know half of this stuff without him.
Yeah, and he's a great writer. You can follow him on Twitter. We'll make sure to link to him in the show notes so you can, and he's deep into this beer scene.
Too many years ago, he wrote a book called The Good Beer Guide to Prague and the Czech Republic. And it's still useful, although the number of breweries in the Czech Republic has exploded and the number of pubs you can go to has exploded. But a lot of the oldies are still there. And it's and there's a lot in that book that explains the basics, like we're talking about now with the styles and the numbers and right. What Czech beer drinking culture and stuff. It's still a handy book, and you can get it often for cheap on Amazon used. So
what sort of amazes me is you just said, like, how it's exploded. And, I lived there now 15 years ago, and it was already massive. I remember being there, and there was something like 6,000 pubs in a city of, 1 million people for all intents and purposes. And that seemed like a lot. Like, you literally couldn't go somewhere without kind of walking through a bar.
Yeah. I should clarify, the variety has exploded.
Right.
So the craft beer bars or variety type tap houses type, those things, there's a lot more of those than there used to be.
Right. And there are definitely just more beer bars in general as well. Even when we were there last this year, there was just more.
Yeah, in Prague anyway. I don't know if it's probably not the same in the smaller towns in the countryside. But
well, if anybody's been to Brno, let us know.
About the brewing, and I'll try to make this quick. There's a couple of things that make the Czech beer really special. So we were familiar, lager is the most popular type of beer all around the world. Very, very high percentage, 90-something probably. But the lager here is different because they still do it in a very old-fashioned way. Partly it's the hops, primarily, almost entirely Saaz hops, which are subtle compared to the stuff we find in IPAs and whatnot, but actually can be quite aromatic and very flavorful. It can be spicy and herbal, even lemony, and it can do other things depending on the beer and then place it comes from. So that's the first tier of it. The other is two other tiers, I would say. One is the malt, of course. They do an old-fashioned way of malting the barley, floor malting, and it's... How to explain it in a simple way, it's sort of the malt is less processed.
Okay.
More character, but it's less processed. It's what we say less modified. And so this sets it up for the third part of it, which is decoction mashing. Now that's geeky.
Okay, what is that?
Okay, so the mash when you're brewing is when you're soaking the ground up malt in the warm water to get the stuff that you boil and make the beer out of.
Right.
So this ground up mash in the warm water, decoction means that they're taking a big chunk of that, like a third of it, and they're taking it separately and they're boiling it. And sometimes they do this 2 times or even 3 times. So what this is doing is caramelizing the sugars in the malt.
Okay.
So like a Maillard reaction when you're cooking, this creates extra flavor. In this case, it's like a deeper malt taste and residual sugars. And that also means residual body in the beer. And another benefit it has is better foam also.
Okay.
And the brewers will swear that it creates a much better balance. They can throw in a lot of hops and it works out better. And it all sort of, it's like a delicate puzzle, like a house of cards. It all fits together. And if you take any piece of this out, it just collapses.
Right. I sort of think about it like imagine an unseared steak. And then a nice seared steak in a cast iron skillet with butter. Like those have 2 completely different flavor profiles, even though ostensibly they're kind of the same thing.
Yes. I think maybe the point would be that there's all kinds of ways you can make a perfectly decent lager around the world. But if you're doing it in a fast way, you're not going to get to the same place.
Yeah.
You can make a good beer, but it won't be Czech beer.
Yeah.
Czech beer does the things this way. It's the way all the Czech brewers learn to brew it, and it's slower. It takes more time, it takes more energy, so it's more expensive, but they swear by it, and they do it in large quantities, and it remains beautifully cheap.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap and it's delicious, especially when you get a fresh tankova, just out of that tank, first time it's touched the air, and it's a little bit sweet, a little bit dank, but it's just beauty in a glass.
Yeah, that sounds like a good segue to get into locale, right?
Yeah,
so
I think so.
Start talking about places to go and drink in Prague.
Yeah.
I think the locale is one, if you want to get sort of a good local experience, although it's actually quite popular with tourists.
Location, I mean, locale Dula, because Dula goes right into the old town square, Šteo Městí, so it's central as central can be.
So I've been to locale, but I've never been to locale, Zach. Tell me what I can expect when I go in there.
So it's a long beer hall, which is sort of nice. So you walk in the front, there's a little bar right up front, a few tables, very wooden, white tiles, always bustling with people. And the service staff is very Czech in the sense that there's that sort of gruffness, but they also make sure you're taken care of in a very Czech hospitality manner. Like your beer will never be empty if you don't want it to be.
What's the beer?
Pilsner Urquell off a tank. They have huge, I'm guessing, stainless steel tanks, and probably a couple times a day, they pump in fresh beer that's not touched the air. So from one tank to another, from a tank trunk into their tank. And it's Léjac, it's Pilsner Urquell, it's beautiful beer. They also have the Dark, which I'm guessing is that Kozel that they have?
Yeah, it's Kozel.
Kozel Dark, yeah. And it's kind of like a temple to beer. So the main beer bar where they're pulling pints or mugs, whatever you want to call it, there's this huge black and white of one of the brewers from the brewery out in Pilsen, and all the staff's wearing white shirts and black ties, and you sit down and they give you a beer card and it's got mugs of beer on it, and they just start knocking them off as you drink the beer. There's great food, very classic Czech. You'll get schmazný syr, which is a fried edam that's been breaded. You'll get svíčková, which is sort of like a roast pork with brown sauce and a currant jam, things like that, things that are fundamental cornerstone Czech cuisine.
There's the beef neck with the mushroom sauce and the fat dumplings.
Yes, and they got the obatsta, which is sort of the beer cheese that's mixed with like cream cheese and brie and beer and paprika and onions, and they have good pates, and it's comfort food.
And it's not expensive. It's pretty cheap.
When we were just there this year, it was still, I want to say 30 for a beer, 30 crowns.
For a small one. For a half liter is 50. So that's
50, yeah.
$2.25 for a half liter of beautiful, unpasteurized beer rushed from the brewery in a truck. By the way, the way it doesn't touch the air is in a plastic bag.
Wow,
they keep it in this like sterilized plastic bag, such with
like
the air
a bladder.
Yeah, exactly. The air pushes on the bag so it doesn't touch the beer.
Right, that's fascinating.
As fresh as you can possibly drink in a pub. You're talking about the service. I love the sheets that they give you that with the little mug icons all over.
Yeah.
It's like 100 mug icons, and every time you drink one, they X one out.
Yeah.
Someday I'm going to get to 100.
Someday, yeah. You'll need to roll up with the crew.
I might need some help, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the sort of thing. I remember when I first moved there, when I was kind of young and stupid. After work, we'd all go down to the pub that was below where our office was. And, on Friday night, you start drinking Pilsner off the tap. And, this is just a little cafe and nothing, but there's still gorgeous, gorgeous beer because they take care of their taps there. They clean them out every night and they make sure that what they're serving is good, no matter what. And it's completely okay back then to take your beer back if it was a little bit off. But, it was kind of easy back then to drink 10 beers between, like 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night and just not think about it because it's so delicious.
And it's not very strong. I think Pilsner Urquell is 4.4, I think? 4.5 or so. Yeah.
It's in that sessionable Guinness area.
It goes down very quickly.
But I get excited about these places because, it's a little bit of nostalgia and I want to go back. And it's this very unique culture around beer because anywhere you go in sort of the Czech beer world, when you go to these old school pubs, that's how it always is. You get a beer and the servers will see that your beer is getting almost empty, and they just bring you over another one, and they just mark it off on your sheet. No matter where you are, that's not just local. It's also, when you're out in the country, when you're at other beer bars in the city, and you kind of have to put your beer mat over your glass to tell them, I'm done. Otherwise, that beer is going to be sitting down before you even think about it.
So another place I think we ought to talk about that is a temple of beer and a sort of, for some years now, has been maybe the one place you need to make a pilgrimage if you're coming to Prague, is Lichasi.
Yes.
And it's 3 floors, I think, or there are more floors that I haven't counted. Each floor has a different bar, and each bar of the bars has a different set of beers that are on tap. And there's a lot of good Czech beer, but also a lot of good foreign craft beer as well.
Oh, yeah.
The atmosphere is good, lots of wood and knickknacks and things, and then people are nice. And you're going to find, sort of like-minded beer travelers from around the world probably there.
For sure.
And make new friends.
A little younger crowd,
new friends
too.
Forever.
Like a younger beer nerd crowd.
Yeah, I think so. And then the food is burgers. Big, sloppy, messy burgers.
Yes. And massive hot dogs, like 3-foot-long hot dogs.
Not what I come to Prague to eat, but
no,
but if you need to lay down a bed for the river of beer, that's going to do a pretty good job. So
yeah, and it's sort of nice because you can choose your atmosphere. Because when you walk in, it's kind of a small beer bar there, and you're like, oh, this is it. Not realizing there are other floors, and then you kind of meanders and mazes around, and you can find little kind of nooks to sit in with your friends, or you can sit at the bar on your own and just chat with the bartenders, the beer bartenders, because I found them always to be very willing and open to talking about what beer they have on tap.
Yeah, and they're totally are going to speak English, so don't worry.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's also very, like in places like this now, especially, the menus are very clear. The names have trickled into sort of a lingua franca, if you will, of things have become, especially in the craft side of things, so you will see familiar words.
Lichasi starts with a big Z there, and a couple other places that we'll probably talk about. It's a bit outside the center. Not a lot outside the center. You can get there easily on the tram. Yeah. And the trams in Prague are excellent, as is the metro system.
And cheap.
Yeah. There are these little convenience stores and kiosks. You'll see little bodegas all over the city. You can buy tickets from any of them. And they also are not going to be shocked when you don't speak Czech. It's okay.
Yeah. They're called tabaks, T-A-B-A-K, tabak.
Yeah.
And just say a tram ticket and they'll know what you're talking about. I believe around the same price as a small beer as a tram ticket, or you can get a day pass for about $5, $7, which that's usually the play because you have it all day and you get to jump on, jump off. Plus the trams run 24/7.
And you can get by just fine in the old city center. There'll be plenty of places to drink. And
for sure.
But we're telling you the choice stuff here, the stuff that it's worth getting a little bit out of your way for.
Yeah. Where next? Where would we go next? Now we got a big burger inside of us.
Yeah, well, my new favorite is Ushimabe.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic.
It's not really that old, though.
It feels like a classic.
I know, it looks like a classic. It looks like it hasn't changed in 100 years. But they've done a really good job sort of furnishing it. They've got these beautiful tile floors, lots of wood paneling, tasteful bric-a-brac, I suppose you'd say.
Lots of space.
Yeah, lots of space. There's quite a few tables. You can eat there. I've never eaten there, but the food looks good. Very typical traditional stuff. The reason I've never eaten there is because I can't seem to get past the front room. That cool little like front bar room where there's a couple of tables for standing up and drinking. And then there's the main attraction, I suppose, would be the 12 taps, which are, well, all Czech beers, but almost entirely lagers, which is unusual, I think, in Prague. When you find that many taps, you're going to find IPAs and imports and things, which is fine. But if you're foreigners like us and you want to drink Czech beer, this is perfect. I think both Budvar and Pilsner Urquell are there on the first two taps. And then after that, you're going to find 3 or 4 or 5 other 10 or 12 degree pale lagers to try from small breweries. And then you're going to find a couple of dark ones and a couple of strong ones. And then there might be 1 or 2 ales. But I think for me, this is really cool to come into a place that feels so traditional. And then there's all of these traditional beers too. That's exactly what I want when I go to Prague.
Yeah. And it's, again, very inexpensive. I think I got a dark lager. It was 40 crowns, which was just under, $2.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
In tourist areas, it's a bit different, but in like typical places in the Czech Republic, it's rare that you would pay more than $2 for a half liter of beer. Yeah. And it's always going to be good.
Yeah, that's a great little place. That's a sort of one of those places as well where you can get drawn in. And you're like, oh, we're just going to stop in for one. And then it's, 4 hours later.
That was where they brought out the chili cherry liquor last time. You remember?
Yes.
Yeah, that was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it was tasty, but not necessary.
I found the bottle and brought it home, and I haven't touched it since.
Right. It was tasty.
Yeah, maybe tonight.
There's a place I used to go to a lot, and this is touristy. So if you're kind of looking to get your feet wet without getting too overwhelmed on like the first night you're there, over by Ujats in Malostrana is a place called Olympia, which is a Kolkovna tank bar of Pilsner Urquell, Kozel, Cherny. The menus are in English. It's all very seasonal Czech food, so you can get a big dinner in. There's, they have venison on the menu and rabbit, and they have what they call a pečené koleho. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. My Czech isn't that good anymore, which is basically a big oven roasted pork shank that's usually about 2 pounds that they just bring you out on a big wooden pallet with a knife stuck in it and a little bit of mustard and radish and rye bread. It's a big old place on the corner, right on a bridge, real easy to find. Run in there, kind of, you can get your feet wet, or if you're a little hungover and you don't want to deal with anything, and get back in the game and get a good Czech meal in. Grab a pečené koleho, eat all the pork. You can manage, drink a few quick fresh beers, and then get back out to it.
I thought I didn't know that place, but I know that place. Yeah, I popped in there.
Yeah.
You can't resist it if you're walking by there.
Yeah, because on the corner, it's a corner place as well. So it's all windows. There's
it's like an Art Deco style, right?
Yeah, Art Deco style. There's a huge round bar right when you walk in where they're pulling beers.
Yeah, big and brassy.
Always bustling with people. And actually, if you're looking for breakfast, literally across the street from that is Cafe Savoy, which is an old Austro-Hungarian cafe, Viennese style. Amazing in-house made pastries, coffees, teas, a little bit of, continental scrambled egg breakfast, but huge ceilings, all neoclassical and neo-baroque and chandeliers. And again, it's the sort of place that you would think would be crazy expensive, but it's not. You can get a full like coffee and a beautiful apple strudel with cream and everything for like $5, and there's your breakfast sort of thing. It's a nice little quarter there, so go to Ujats if you need a little break from things. There's a little good breakfast there in an Olympia bar.
All right, okay,
yeah,
my turn.
Yeah,
I want to talk about a beer in a brewery and where you can find that beer and where you can find that brewery. It's my favorite beer in the Czech Republic, I think, which would make it really high up for my favorite beer in the whole wide world.
Ooh, wow.
And it's the Břevnovský Benedikt 12 degree Divinačka. And again, I have to thank Evan for showing me this one, but this beer is pretty special. It's hoppier than I think generally Czech lagers are going to be hoppier than you might expect anyway. But this is, I think, hoppier than even a normal Czech pale lager is. And they're doing more late hopping, so you get more aroma, big burst of aroma and hop flavor too. And the hops are weird, because they're coming from, if you're familiar with old vine grapes, these are like old vine hops. These were some plants that they rediscovered that were never dug out and replanted, which is something that normally happens to hop plants after some certain number of years. So this is like heirloom hops.
Okay.
Which makes a cool story, but the point is that it smells really good. It's like some combination of nettles and chamomile on steroids and apricots. That's my take on it.
That's complex.
It's pretty complex, but it's not subtle. It's like it's right in your face, which is kind of nice. But it's different. It's distinctive. It's not a smell you usually get from beer. And also, you can drink a lot of it. But it's not that easy to find around town. It's not something you're going to find everywhere. The one place I know you can find it virtually every day, it's not too far from the train station, is the Pivovarsky Club. And it's also, Pivovarsky Club also is a good place to buy beer, just to take away back to your hotel or bring home with you. They have about 250 different bottled beers. And they have, I think, 6 taps, maybe 12 if the ones downstairs are different. But one of them is always Benedict 12. So that's often my first and last stop on a Prague weekend trip, because it's to and from the train station. Kind of. But it's a quick metro ride from near there. So, But the brewery is in Prague, and it's not that hard to get to. It's a short-ish tram ride west of the big, beautiful castle. And we should talk about the castle and the bridge and all these things. I feel like we got to put things in context. The castle is the thing you got to see. But then keep taking the tram out a ways west of there, not very far, really. And there is the Břevnov Monastery. It's not a monastery anymore, but it's a beautiful grounds for walking, very green. And that's where the Břevnov Brewery is. They don't do tours or anything. I mean, maybe they would if you wrote in advance and asked nicely, but anyone can go in there and buy beer, and then you can see the kit, take pictures, ask nosy questions. It's the same as a tour, really. And a couple other things of note in the grounds here. One is a really cool old rustic tavern called the Klasztorny Schenk, which means monastery tap room or something, or monastery tavern. It's, wooden rafters and very country. And the food is unbelievable in there. If you didn't have gout going in, you'll probably have gout leaving. There's like crunchy pork rinds and lard, and then you spread that on thick brown bread or with onions, Or there's baked camembert with cranberry sauce on it, or pork belly with horseradish and mustard. And
sticks to your ribs.
Yeah, they serve the pork knuckles there with sour cherries and apple horseradish sauce, or sour cherries on a pork knuckle, man.
Yeah.
And they have all the beers there. Of course, the Benedict beers are there, including the 12. And then the other thing there is the hotel. Hotel Adalbert. It's not the cheapest hotel in town, but it's reasonable. I have to say up front, the breakfast there sucks. That's a normal thing in the Czech Republic for whatever reason. I've never had a good hotel breakfast in the Czech Republic.
It's very like yesterday's white bread. Slice of cheese, slice of ham.
Instant coffee.
Maybe a hard-boiled egg if you're lucky.
But you can start drinking in the morning, so it's fine.
Yeah, very true.
$2 a half liter. So
beer for breakfast is good anyway.
It's
you get your nutrition, you get your calories, get a little carbs, work them off during the day.
There you go. So I got that out of the way. I had to say my piece on all that, on the Benedict and the Adalbert, and you can stay there. Oh, another place you can stay, Umedvidku Brewery, big beer hall downstairs. First thing you do when you check into the hotel, Umedvidku, this is closer to the center, is they give you a free beer. Hey, welcome, here's a beer. It never fails to warm my cockles.
Yes.
And then it's nice to come home and come back to your room at night, and you can have one more there in the beer hall, whether it's their own beer or they have good fresh budvar there. And before you stumble upstairs to your room with all the rafters and the old furniture and stuff, it's not a fancy place, but it's big.
Yeah, it's a truly iconic Prague Czech beer experience. Authentic, for lack of a better term. I don't even know what that term means anymore, but you'll feel like you're really there. That will make the flight worth it to me.
It's a real brewery, and it's a building with some old bones to it.
Yeah. You get it a little bit out of the center, which is nice. A little tram ride. Yeah, and then the next day, you definitely need to go up to Pohoszelec on the 22 tram and walk through the castle and down and walk off all the pork fat and all that beer that you've been eating and drinking, and walk over the Charles Bridge and walking through the Old Town Square and all that.
The Charles Bridge is often overcrowded with tourists and touts and all this stuff, but I recommend getting up early in the morning.
Yes.
The last time I did this, it was snowing. It was like one of those really memorable moments of snowing on the Charles Bridge. There was hardly anybody there, and you're looking around at the castle, and it's just this beautiful place.
Yeah.
The only thing I had to worry about was where am I going to eat lunch, and
and where am I going to get the beer after that?
Yeah, well, before that.
Before and after and during. And that's also the wonderful thing about Prague. Like, you'll go for a walk and you'll see little beer bars, and some places will have sandwich boards out advertising their beer in English and Russian and, tourist languages. And I would argue 50-50, that's still going to be a cool beer bar. And there's probably 90% of the time going to have amazing beer, whether it's touristy or not. So you can't go too off course or too wrong in Prague, even in the center of the center. Like, the beer is generally still going to be really good and relatively inexpensive. Even places like right off Old Town Square, like Dvokoček or Kaču. What is it?
Two cats.
Yes.
Dvokoček, yeah.
Yeah, Dvokoček. I mean, they brew their own beer there.
I love that place.
Yeah.
There's a big mural in there of the cat, and then the dude's milking the cat, which doesn't make sense, but whatever.
Right.
And they're milking it into their beer mugs, and it's they have a lovely Svetli Ležák and a lovely dark beer.
Yeah.
And they also have Pilsner Urquell, I believe.
Yeah.
And good, cheap, typical food.
And you can stand at the bar where they're pulling beers, or you can go sit down in the other room, and it's right off of Old Town Square, and it's great.
I was there 2 years ago, and there was still smoking.
Right.
Even during meal times, which was not that weird. But now it's gone non-smoking like most places around Prague, so it's more pleasant.
So let's wrap this up, because we have a bit of a debate here. I was sort of lamenting of going to Prague in the winter because it's so cold, and you don't get to go to any of the beer gardens. And there are two sort of iconic beer gardens in Prague, at Ryogrovy Sady and Letenské Sady, sort of on the opposite side of the hills of the city. Letenské Sady has this amazing view over the city from a beer garden, where you just go up and you get, plastic cups of half liters of great beer, and you get a perek vibruliku, which is a hot dog inside a bun, but like put in from the top of the bun down. It's filled up with mustard for, $1. And you can just sit there all day under the trees, chestnut trees, and, look at the city. The castle's right behind you. Ryogrovy Sady on the other side's in this big, beautiful park. And, it's the sort of thing where, to me, it almost feels like, how can you miss that out of Prague? But then...
Well, yeah, so you can't take away my snowing on Charles Bridge moment either. I know. But there are still quite a few tourists in winter. It's not like they go away entirely. No. Prague is a very well-touristed city. But, I mean, the beer gardens are fine. But we live in Germany, dude. I mean, we have lots of nice beer gardens here. I don't go to Prague for beer gardens. I go for these cozy little pubs and the great beer. And winter is a perfectly nice time to find yourself there doing that.
And there are nice Christmas markets this time of year as well. Though they have sort of changed that. I mean, back in the day, you'd only get like the spit roasted hams and things like that at the Christmas markets. Now they have those on Old Town Square 365. For me, it's a 50-50. It's like, I love it there in the winter, but man, I can't forget the time just sitting up at Letenské Sady, drinking beers all day. And you can bring your own food. Like, we used to bring, rotisserie chickens up there and, play games. And, again, I think it's the view that keeps in my mind. You just have the whole city right there to look at. But then think about walking around a Christmas market and it's snowy, and like you said, fewer tourists.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to twist my arm to go there any time of year.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of what you want. Also, probably a lot cheaper to go in the winter.
I'm sure.
Especially these days. Yeah, I think that's sort of a good introduction. So, like, if you do go, you hit these places, chat with people, strike up conversations, you're going to go a little bit deeper, and then you're going to find sort of the hidden spots and things like that, just by, being a little bit open. But there's one...
We got to talk about it, right?
We got to talk about one spot. Yeah, one more spot really quickly, which is sort of, you got to be in the know. You might even bump into Evan Rail here.
Yeah, man. It's the, we were talking about the tram earlier, and how you can use it to get to places that maybe you wouldn't get to otherwise. But if you just stay on that tram and keep going, you get to the end of the line, and you get off, and it'll, at nighttime particularly, it'll confirm somehow all of these ridiculous Cold War era stereotypes you have about Central Eastern Europe, because it feels desolate.
And tower blocks, apartments, and everything.
Yeah, and then there's an old station there, an old tramway station, and it is in fact a pub. It's the Pivní tramway, and actually I'm wearing the t-shirt today. I've got a t-shirt from here. I love this shirt. It's one of my best drinking shirts. And it's just, you feel like you've arrived at the end of the world. It's a small, cozy place. It really is an old station. The beer selection is wonderful. The guy's hilarious. It's one of those places you get to and you feel like that's sort of what it's all about, to go a little bit out of the way and find something that good. And
yeah, we're not going to tell you the tram line to take. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself, because you got to do a little bit of a sort of an adventure here.
All the details you'll find on my blog, thirstypilgrim.com, on UpRocks.
Yep.
You say, what did they talk about? I need to look it up. Well, you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, we'll click it all in the show notes. So, yeah, that's also a great place to sort of like the last bar you go to the last night, because it's at the end of the line and you can just settle in. The tram's going to be running all night long anyway, and just start picking off great beers, because it's truly outstanding beer list there.
Yes.
So that is our Prague show. We'll be back next week with another great city. If you could please subscribe on iTunes and comment, that would be amazing. Also, you can find us on Stitcher and Google Play and all those places where you can find podcasts usually. You can follow us and comment on this episode at Twitter at Road for the Beer. You can also follow us on Instagram at One More Road for the Beer. And so, yeah, this episode was engineered and edited by Teskard Berlin and was produced by Joe and Zach. That's it. Goodbye.
Good night.